Hello everyone, my name is Serdal and I'd like to welcome you to the Prime II Xsens webinar. Today we will be showing you the power of the Prime II Xsens gloves and how it can empower your body capture when you are making use of an Xsens suit. So first, what I want to share with you is that I'm wearing the Prime II Xsens gloves right now, obviously, and as you can see, my finger data is being shown live on your screen. What we're going to show today is the finger data in MVN Animate, so how you can get these fingers inside MVN Animate. Afterwards, we'll show you how you can record the bundled data of your Xsens body and your Manus gloves together and how that recording works. Then we will jump straight into streaming the bundled data into Unreal Engine. And afterwards, we'll show a user highlight and conclude with a live Q&A where you can ask all your questions. The Q&A will also be shared together with an Xsens colleague, so we can answer the questions regarding the Manus Prime II glove, but also regarding the Xsens side of the collaboration. So let's jump into the features of the Prime II gloves, because I can't wait to tell you more about it. So the first feature that I want to dive into is the finger tracking capabilities of the Prime II Xsens gloves. As you can see, my fingers are being tracked real time and as shown on top of your screen, as you've seen before. And what I can do is play my fingers. I can do any type of movements that I want to, and the finger tracking shows what the Prime II Xsens gloves can do. The same is also for the Prime II glove itself. They have the same finger tracking capabilities, but the Prime II Xsens can be directly used inside of MVN Animate. One of the most practical features is the interchangeable battery. When you're in a longer mocap session and you want to continue but your battery life has finished, you can simply swap the battery and continue with your session. Another very practical thing on the software side is you don't need internet to make use of Manus software, which means that when you are in a more protected environment and you want to make use of the software but you have no internet connection, or you're not allowed to use internet connection from third-party software, for example, you can make use of the Manus gloves, the Manus software, and there will be no limitations. The most practical thing also about starting to use these gloves is the short calibration that we have. Inside of Manus Core, you can do a calibration which measures your finger bend and understands how your finger exactly bends with simple 3 moves, and this takes up to 30 seconds. So the first move that you have to do inside of Manus Core is making a fist, as I'm doing right now. Afterwards, you open your hand and close your thumb. And the last one is a pistol sign that you have to make. And after these 3 moves, Manus Core software understands what your finger bends like and calibrates the glove accordingly. Another nice thing is that these gloves come with 12 months of warranty. So if anything happens, if there is any problem, we are there to help you with it and solve your problem or swap your glove whenever necessary. And I want to close with the 2 weeks trial possibilities that we have. If you're interested in trying these gloves out, please contact our sales team at sales@manus-vr.com and they can help you get a trial for 2 weeks. So these are the features very shortly summarized, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Arsène, and Arsène will show you how you can use the Prime II Xsens gloves inside MVN Animate. Have fun, because we'll be back with a live Q&A afterwards, and we can answer all the questions that you have. Just leave them in the chat, and we'll come back later. Thank you very much.
Hi there, I'm Arsène Vanderbilt, and I'm a product specialist at Manus. And today I will show and explain how easy it is to set up the Manus gloves inside of MVN, streaming MVN body data with finger data to Unreal Engine, as well as recording, exporting and importing animations with finger data to Unreal Engine. As you can see, I've already set up the suit, I've set up the gloves, and everything what I'm doing is being recorded, or I should say is being captured. We're not saving anything yet. And first we will begin by showcasing how easy it is to set this up. So I'm going to close the current session and I'm going to start from scratch to take you through all the steps involved, which are not many, but it's good to know. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to open a new config. I've set up a dimensions profile before, and I have to make sure that in the fingers tab, the Manus VR gloves are selected, as well as the dongle for the pair of gloves that I'm using. But that's it. We can begin. All the sensors are connected. As you can see, my avatar might need a little calibration. He's not looking too good. And since I'm by myself recording this, we'll use the hands-off calibration. And we'll use the default neutral pose and walk. Simply make sure it's selected, click calibrate, and then first we're going to do a neutral pose a couple of seconds, and then walk around and stand in a neutral pose again. I'm going to switch my camera to a wide angle camera so you can more clearly see what I'm doing, and I'm going to move my chair out of the way so it's not blocking the view of the camera. So first the wide angle lens, and next I'm going to move my chair, and then we can do the calibration. All right, and then we can begin. First the neutral pose. And then we can start walking. We have to wait a couple of seconds while the processing is busy. After that, we should be good to go. Then everything should be calibrated. Usually it takes anywhere between 5 to 20 seconds. It kind of depends on how fast your computer is. And there you go. The processing is finished. The only step left is now the final neutral pose calibration. So let's do that. That's it. Everything is calibrated. I will set up the view so you can better see what I'm doing, similar to the view that I set up before. There you go. And we'll begin with a close-up of the finger tracking inside of MVN. So I'm going to switch my camera again. There you go. So first my right hand, display of the fingers, as well as the bending. And my other hand, my left hand. And we're going to make a small recording that we're going to use later in the video where we're going to export data. So I'm going to click the record button, but before I'm going to change to the wide angle lens again so you can see better what I'm doing. Let's click record. Okay, that should be it. And we can save this recording. Next, I will explain how you can set up the live streaming to Unreal Engine, but for that I will get my chair back and I will set up the Unreal project that I have prepared. And here I am again. So I have the Showcase Unreal project open, and I will take you through the steps that you would need to go through yourself if you want to live stream MVN data into Unreal. First, one of the things that you need to make sure is that you have the Live Link plugin installed. You can install this, or you can get this from the Unreal Engine Marketplace, and you have to make sure that inside of the plugin setting it is enabled. And next up, if you want to stream data from MVN into Unreal, you have to make sure that in the network streaming settings this is enabled. So this is the local IP, this is the port, and it is going to send orientation and position data as well as finger tracking data, which is what we want. Next up, inside of Unreal, you have to add a live link source. So you can do that by using the port that you saw before in the streamer. And then it will add a subject, which is the current session that is open. Next, we will import a mesh. So I've prepared a model that we're going to set up. And an important thing during the setting up of this model is that you have to make sure that the orientation of the axis is set in such a way that it is like the front x-axis is forced. That's important for this plugin, which is checked already. We simply click import and we wait for the model to import. Now everything is imported and we're going to set up the skeleton so the body data from MVN is correctly mapped onto the 3D model that we have. So we're going to select the skeleton and let's go to the mesh, and then we're going to create a T-pose, because as you can see this character is not in a T-pose, which is important for the setup. So we're going to create asset, animation, and then current pose. And we're going to call this T-pose. Yes. And then let's stop this from playing. The easiest is to go into the front view, go to lit, and rotate all the bones so that the character is in a proper T-pose. So we'll start with the upper arm. Let's make this a little bit bigger so it's a little bit easier to see. Okay, and the lower arm and the hand. And as you can see here, the hand is rotated about 90 degrees. So we're going to straighten that. There you go. And the arm, the upper arm itself, is also pointing downward. We're also going to straighten it. Should be a little bit less. Something like this. We'll use 23. We can use the same value for the other arm. And then for the fingers, we also have to make sure that the fingers are straightened. So we're just gonna select all of the fingers and set the rotation to 0 as well. And then for the thumb, we have to make sure that it is rotated an additional 90 degrees. Let's see, it's a little bit tricky to see. Yes, like this, but I will turn snapping on. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing for the other arm. Go back into the front view and select the upper arm. Now, as you might remember, for this one we set it to 23, so we're also going to do that for this one. and then this can also go to 0, and this one can go to 0 as well. And as you can see, this one also needs to be rotated an additional 90 degrees. And we're going to select these finger bones and also zero them out. And then the thumb also needs to be rotated an additional 90 degrees. Let's see. There you go. And we also need to do the legs. So select the bone. Okay. This one. And foot. And let's do the other leg as well. And this one needs to be rotated at 180 degrees, as well as on the other axis as well. And lower leg. And the foot. Okay, let's go into the top view. Now, as you can see, the arms are arching back a bit too far, so we're also going to straighten them in the other axis. So let's select it. And this looks good. Let's use -10. And then use the same value here. So also -10. So the arms are straight, the fingers are straight. Let's do from the side. The legs are, the bones for the legs are straight as well. And do the front view. Everything should be good. As you can see, there is a weapon attached to this specific model. We'll be using a material to make it transparent for this video. Normally you would use an attachment, you would use something else. But for this model, it's embedded in the mesh, which makes it a little bit harder. But that doesn't matter. There are ways around it. So next up, we select the root, click key and apply, and we're finished doing our T-pose. And we can close this. So now that we saved our T-pose, we're going to create the remap. So select the skeleton, right click, go to Xsens, and then create remap asset. And then here we're going to select the T-pose that we just made. And then here is the remapping. So to remap the NVN skeleton data onto this character. Now, this is a lot of bones that we need to remap. So we're going to fast forward. I'm going to painstakingly enter every single one of them, but we're going to fast forward it in this video. Okay, we set up all the bones. Let's compile and save. And as you can see, I made it so that you can see what I'm doing on the avatar as well. So you can have something more interesting than just me scrolling through the list of bones. Let's see. So we can close this, and I'm going to make the Unreal Engine viewport big again and move myself around. There you go. Okay, now we set up the skeleton. Now we're going to make the connection from the skeleton with the live link data. So we're going to create an animation blueprint. Go to animation and then animation blueprint. Make sure you have nothing selected here, and then select the skeleton that we just set up. Click OK. And then we're going to call this live MVN. And we're going to open this. And here inside of the animation graph, we're going to connect it with the live link data by right clicking and then typing live link pose, connecting it, compiling it, and selecting a subject. Well, as you can see, this is all kinds of weird. is because we're not using the retargeting asset that we made, so mapping all the bones, which is this one. Simply compile, and as you can see, it's more or less working, except maybe my leg, and I'm pretty sure that I might have done something wrong here, since my legs here are looking pretty good. So we're going to compile this and save this, and we're going to open the remap asset and see what I might have done wrong with my legs. So left upper leg is correct, left upper lower leg, that is definitely the wrong one. So we're gonna, that's not what I wanted to do. So we're gonna do, there we go. That is the correct one. So left upper leg, left lower leg, left foot, left toe. That looks a lot better. Right upper leg, right lower leg, right foot, right toe. Let's compile and save. And let's take a look if this is any better. This is a lot better. This is definitely what it should look like. And as you can see, it's already using the live MVN data directly inside of Unreal. I'm going to do like this and make this a little bit bigger. So as you can see, the MVN data, the glove data is streamed directly into Unreal Engine. You can use this to visualize anything. As you might see, there is a weapon attached to my hand. We're going to hide that in the final preview. I'm going to make this big again, and this as well. And then we're going to save everything. Oop. Just to be sure. And then inside of the mesh, there is a, let's see, material for the weapon somewhere hidden. Let's see if we can find it. Is it this one? It is that one. Let's apply that one. I've applied a material that is translucent to it. And there you go. So there is no longer a floating weapon. I will set up the materials, and we're also going to fast forward that because that's definitely not interesting to look at. Okay, that seems to be it. We're going to drag the character inside of the viewport, or I should say the blueprint, and if we go into play mode, we will be able to see what I'm doing directly mapped onto this character in real time. So I'm going to share the MVN view as well. I'm going to rearrange the views a little bit so you can get a better understanding what is going on. And I'm going to switch my camera. And let's walk around a little bit. First, I will change the viewport a little bit again, so you can see a bit what is going on. Okay, perfect. Now, what we are doing here is we're streaming live MVN data inside of Unreal. But what we can also do is the recording that we made before, stream that data live or export that data. So I'm going to close this session and I'm going to load the recording that you saw me make. So we're going to cancel the processing. We're going to cancel the processing. It's very nice, but we don't have time right now for the processing. So what you can do inside of MVN, when you make a recording, there is a step called HD processing, and it will clean up and improve the sensor data. And you can also use this when you make a recording, process this data, and then stream out the data again to Unreal, for example. We're not going to do that now, so I'm going to close this dialog. And I'm going to press play, and here I'm going to into play mode. And as you can see, let's navigate again. The recording that we made before of me moving my fingers and counting is now streaming from MVN inside of Unreal. And what you can do is you can export this data as well. So you can export this data from NVN into FBX and then retarget it in Unreal. If you want to use it on a different character, if you want to, for example, export it from MVN into Maya or Max or Blender or any other kind of 3D animation software, clean up or adjust the animation, export again, and then import it in Unreal. It's a very nice process. So next we will export the recording in MVN and import it in Unreal. So I'm going to pause what is happening in Unreal right now. And I'm also going to stop the streaming here, or doesn't really matter. I'm going to export this file. And you have some options here, but for now we're just going with the default. I'm only going to change the folder, so it's in the same folder as the other recording that we made. So in here, and then export. As I mentioned, you can process it. It's probably best, but we're not going to do it for this webinar. And then press OK. And we have to wait a little bit. And then there we go. Next up, we're going to import this in Unreal. So with the FBX exported from MVN, there's one step in between moving it into Unreal Engine, and that is moving it into 3ds Max. Because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to take a raw recording from NVN and use it directly inside of Unreal. Now, because when you record and export to FBX in MVN, you will get only skeleton data. If you don't have any kind of character set up before, which uses the same skeleton, Unreal is not gonna accept the skeleton animation. So what we're going to do is we're going to, in this case, open 3ds Max. You can use Maya, you can use any other kind of 3D software, Blender, whichever you prefer. And we're going to add a mesh to the skeleton animation that we exported from NVN, which is really like a really simple workaround to be able to import it as a character animation and then retarget it in Unreal. So I have the FBX that we exported. I'm going to open it, going through the default settings, well, almost default, and it's going to load in the animation. And if we press play, you can see this is the animation that we recorded. This is me counting with my fingers, walking around a little bit. The same thing that you saw in MVN. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a very simple mesh. We're gonna add a box to one of the bones. Preferably one of the bones that we can see move. I'm going to align it and then put it in the hierarchy. So now, as you can see, the box follows the character. It's a very simple, easy way to make sure that the animation is working. That's it. I'm going to close this, and then we're gonna export this again. So the same folder, I'm just going to call this underscore mesh and export it. And we should bake the animation. Apart from that, we're not doing anything special. Wait a couple of seconds for the export to finish up, and then it should be ready to import into Unreal. There you go. Now, inside of Unreal, I have set up a small scene where we will be showcasing the final animation, and I have a character that I've set up that we are going to apply the recording that we made onto. So the first thing that we're going to do is import the file that we just exported, this file, open it up, and as you can see, we can select skeleton none, it detects it, and that's the only thing more or less. Sometimes you need to make sure that the default sample rate is checked when you import an animation into Unreal. If it's not checked, sometimes the import can take very long, but it's checked here. And import it, wait a couple of seconds, and then we should be good. There you go. There's no bind pose, but it's kind of a hacky thing we did anyway. Let's open it up. And if we go into the animation, we should see the same thing as we saw in Max, which seems to be it. So the only reason that we have this box is so we have a mesh, which is one of the requirements when you're importing a character where you don't have an existing skeleton. Now there are a couple of steps involved to make this animation that we imported ready to retarget onto a different mesh. One of the things that we need to do is we need to make sure that we have a retargeting pose. So a T-pose is most commonly used. What is nice about the FBX export out of MVN is that by default on your very first frame you get a T-pose. Now the character that we will be applying the animation on, as you see, is not standing in a T-pose. So for this character we will need to set up a T-pose. And you can do that by going to animation, by going into skeleton, and in the retarget manager window we have to set a retarget base pose. What we want is that when you see this pose, it is a T-pose. What we're going to do is, now it is showing the pose, we're just going to adjust the pose that you can see here. Similar to what we did before when we were setting up the live link connection. There you go. And this is just straightening the bones, similar to what we did before. But now for the offline animation, so to say. There you go. And the other ones we can just do. All of the other ones can be in local space. The only thing that we need to rotate is the hand. It should be, there you go. And then okay. And the hand as well. Okay. And next up, we need to do the legs as well. Let's do local. Okay. And this too. And finally the foot. Okay. And then the other leg. This leg. And the foot. Okay, now as you can see, the arms and the fingers are straightened, both of them, legs as well. Let's go into top view to verify. Yes, this is what we need. And now we can go into the retarget manager, modify pose, use current pose. And now, as you can see, this is the default A pose. The retarget pose that we are going to use is this T, and we can save this. The other thing that we need to do is we need to set up a rig. So these bones, so when retargeting, the system knows which bones should be applied where. I'm just going to apply a standard humanoid rig, and because this model is using the Unreal Engine 4 mannequin naming scheme, it already fills everything in. So this is like all the main joints, and then if you go to advanced, you can see, for example, all the finger joints as well as some additional bones. And we need to set a preview mesh. The only thing is, maybe I can move it like this. Yes. So we need to set a preview mesh. I'm going to change it to something I don't want to use, and then switch it to the one I want to use. You get a pop-up. You need to do apply to asset. That's the only thing. I will move myself back down again. And then this model that we prepared here is ready to be retargeted onto. And let's save it again. Then the recording that we made, we need to do the same thing more or less. So if we go into skeleton, we also need to set up a humanoid rig. The only difference here is that because the Xsens skeleton by default is not using the same naming scheme, it unfortunately doesn't automatically fill in all these things. So this is a manual process where you have to assign the bones, which is something that I'm going to do now, but we'll probably fast forward or cut this out of the video. So I have set up all of the finger bones as well as the base bones for the character. The only thing left to do is set the preview mesh as you saw previously with the character, and then we can save this, and we are ready to retarget. So we're going to select this animation, right click it, retarget animation asset, duplicate animation, and retarget. We're going to select the character that we want the animation to be applied on. And as you can see, it's standing in a T-pose. Our own skeleton with the box we cannot see because it's a bit of a workaround. It doesn't really matter though. And we're gonna click retarget. And as you can see, it has created a new animation file. We're going to rename this. We're going to call this retargeted animation. And we're going to move this into the showcase folder where we have all of the stuff organized. And we're going to open it up. And as you can see, this is the animation that we recorded. And it's retargeted onto this character that we set up. Okay, we can close this. And let's drag it in here. I'm going to move myself a bit again. Here you can see that it is using an animation asset. And this is the specific animation asset. Let's see, how are we going to do this? Okay, we're going to organize this here in a folder. And because this character has a couple of additional pieces of content, it has a backpack, it has a helmet and some other stuff, we're going to also add those. Let's see, matches, here's the bag, the helmet, as well as the jacket. I'm going to add them here. I'm going to drag them into the same folder, and we're going to copy the location and apply the same location. Now they are on the same spot. The only thing left to do is also apply animations to them. So here we're going to select use animation asset, and then we're going to move back onto the folder with the new animation that we made. this one, and we're going to drag it here, animation to play. And now those three assets, the backpack, the helmet, and the jacket, are also following the same animation as the character is. And now when we hit play, we can see our work in action. So as you can see, the animation that we recorded in MVN exported to FBX and retargeted onto this custom model is working without any issue, even without the HD processing, even without any kind of tweaking. As you can see, the result is pretty good. And as you have seen in the video that I have made for you, it's also not really difficult to set it up. You have to set up the T-pose, you have to set up the rig, click retarget, and that's more or less it. It's pretty straightforward and pretty simple workflow. That's all for me. I hope you enjoyed watching this.